Hi, I'm Camille Tootie. I'm the editorial director at FedScoop. I'm sitting here with Joe Jordan, and we're going to talk a little bit about his experience in government. Joe, tell me a little bit about your first government job and what you learned from that.
My first government job was at the Small Business Administration. I was the Associate Administrator for Government Contracting and Business Development, which I know is a mouthful, but what I learned aside from the kind of technical aspects of the job or the contracting specific knowledge was really one, just how much impact you can have working in the government, and then secondly, the fact that that impact is driven to the taxpayers, to the citizens, and how rewarding that can be. I'd come from really spending my whole career in the private sector, most recently as a consultant, loved it, but there was just an intrinsic good about having the fruits of my labor go to benefit the American people versus a specific slice where shareholders in a particular company, and I found that and continue to find that incredibly rewarding.
Was there anything you did early on that influenced your success?
Sure. I mean, it would be easy for me to point to things like my business school training or work in consulting and media as helping with some of the analytics and the communications pieces of the job. But honestly, Camille, the thing that I did early in my career that probably helped the most was my college summer job as a waiter at a golf course. Serving day after day in a place where anyone there can get you fired, and so you keep your mouth shut, you do the best you can, and you figure it out. That is the type of thing that has served me best, because it doesn't matter what career you're in, whether it's government or private sector, everyone's just looking for smart people who can get things done. People are going to be team players, people are going to have the right attitude, and that experience was really helpful and formative in setting the right attitude as I entered my career.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for young employees who might feel a little overwhelmed in their new roles?
That's a good question. I would say two things. One, you need to hit the ground running, and every single one of them, every single person out there has a place that they can add value from the start. It may, if you're starting as a contracting officer, it may not be that you're going to know everything about contracting from day one, but you can apply your background in a way, in an aspect of the job that allows you to add value and show your worth from day one. At the same time, the second piece is continue to learn. Take the extra time to learn. Learn something new every day. It sounds so trite, but that is the key, because too frequently in any job, you end up looking at the day that's just gone by and you're head down just doing all day long, or especially early in your career where some of your tasks may be more on the execution than the thinking side. It requires a proactive effort to actually say, I want to learn something new today. Feel very comfortable to ask other people, find mentors, find people who are willing to answer your questions. Not the simple questions that you could just Google, but the questions of, how did you approach this? Have you ever encountered that? If you do those two things, showing that you add value, find a place to add value every day and continue to learn, I think you're going to have a really rewarding career.
What's the best career advice you've ever received?
The best career, and I've received a lot from some really great people, but the best piece of advice is probably about how I should make and how I do make career decisions, which is, don't focus on the paycheck in the immediate sense. I understand compensation is very important and all of that, but when you're thinking about your job and your workplace and a potential career opportunity, who are you working with, and how interested are you in the work, and what are you learning? So if you're focused on working with some great people, doing interesting work, and challenging work that you're going to learn from every day, you're going to have an incredibly rewarding career. There is no paycheck within the realm of what somebody may pay me that would be enough to get me through, after 6 months or so in a place where I didn't love or respect my colleagues. I didn't, find the work all that challenging or interesting. It's just, it proves out over and over again. And having that at front of mind as I make any career decision has been really valuable.
What type of resources would you recommend for someone to help further their career?
Well, there are obviously all the kind of formal training, education, technical resources, depending on what field they're in, you certainly want to keep current on any advances or latest developments in your field. That could be true whichever part of the government you're in, whatever you're doing, private sector, same thing. But the resources that I think require a little bit more thought and pay an outsized value is where I talked a little bit about finding a mentor or even just a colleague who's been around and seen more things, who you can go to for advice. Those are the resources where you've got them there in the office with you, and frequently an on-demand kind of way, setting up a coffee, setting up 15 minutes in someone's office, explaining a challenge that you've been presented with or an opportunity you're thinking about or anything else. You really want to take advantage of that. All too frequently, especially people who are early in their career, downplay the tremendous value that people who are more senior in tenure in an organization or field can deliver to them through just informal interactions.
Why would you recommend someone early in their career to work for the government?
Well, I think it really is about the public service element. I get a tremendous sense of satisfaction when I'm able to have a big success achievement in my job in the government space, knowing that that's going to help a lot of people. I work in federal contracting. Government buys about $500 billion worth of goods and services every year. If we can do things a little bit better, and that's going to require a team effort, but if we can do things a little bit better, then that saves a lot of money, and that goes back, especially in these tough fiscal and economic times, that goes back to the hardworking taxpayers in terms of increased mission delivery and all of those types of things. So that is kind of an intrinsic reward and a feeling that is really hard to replicate in the private sector. I understand all of the financial reasons that someone would choose a private sector, or that there are fields that the government doesn't really do and the private sector does. But given that the government either does itself or buys almost everything out there, you really have an opportunity to both have a rewarding career extrinsically, but also with that intrinsic great feeling.
And you're in procurement. What are some of the issues you're working on right now?
Well, there are a whole host of issues that we're working on in procurement. First of all, how do we buy smarter? With $500 billion, $500 billion that we're spending every year, how do we do that in a better way to save money, plow those savings into agencies' mission critical needs, as well as deliver it back to the taxpayer? How do we build the right supplier relationships so we can keep those improvements sustainable and structural, get more small, innovative entrepreneurs into the government supply chain? That's a real focus for us. And then third, how do we recruit, train, and retain a really high quality acquisition workforce? Given all the things that you've talked about in terms of smart young people thinking about whether they enter the government or not, a big focus of mine is getting out there and saying, if you're a smart person who wants to work hard but have that value delivered to a somewhat higher purpose, like helping the American people, this is a great place to do it. And acquisition is a place you can have tremendous impact. So those are the places where I spend the bulk of my time.
Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for being a Fed mentor and talking with FedScoopTV.
Thanks, Camille. Anytime.
Thank you.